There you go.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Greg Cannon with Coppermark Public Adjusters.
And I'm Stephanie Lee with Coppermark Public Adjusters. And today we are joined by Bob Sullivan, who is running for Insurance Commissioner for Oklahoma. And we are so thankful that you're here joining us today to talk about your campaign. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Absolutely. Thank you again for having me on this. Bob Sullivan, candidate for Oklahoma Insurance Commissioner. I spent the last 20 years of my career, my entire career in the insurance industry. Initially working for a very short time, 2.5 years as a middle market underwriter for Hanover Insurance. And for the last 16 plus years, have been an independent agent and broker working predominantly here in Oklahoma alongside business owners, homeowners, families, farmers, ranchers, you name it, to help manage their risk and help protect what they've spent a lifetime building and want to keep building. And in many cases, put them in a position where they can weather our storms and litigation and whatever may befall you and be able to continue their business and pass that home on to the next generation, pass that farm and ranch on to the next generation. I'm a fourth generation Oklahoman myself and raising the fifth gen right now. I've got two kids in middle school and elementary school, and just Oklahoma's always been home.
Well,
Born and raised here, attended Oklahoma State, and have never had any desire to leave the state of Oklahoma. But what drew me to the race for insurance commissioner, other than a career in the industry, is seeing throughout my career how insurance companies how they treat their customers, and it's something that's been troubling to me for quite some time, and particularly in the last several years. I just don't feel like Oklahoma citizens have a strong advocate with their insurance commissioner, with the OID. And it's always been my belief that that was the sole purpose of that agency, was to be the advocate for the consumer. And
well,
so I'm grateful to be on the phone with you all, because right now you all are standing in the gap as the advocate for Oklahoma consumers, working, and negotiating with their insurance carriers who don't seem to have a lot of interest in operating in good faith.
Well, and yeah, you answered my first question there on why you're running, and it actually is written into the Oklahoma Administrative Code that the insurance department is a consumer protection agency. So you are right on all of that.
Yeah, not an insurance company protection agency.
Yeah,
No,
and we love your background. We won't hold the Oklahoma State against you. Okay, so
thank you.
I like that.
so tell me why you think your background will be more beneficial for you to be commissioner, maybe versus your other candidates.
Well,
Sure. So,
and more specifically, your background in property, because a lot of times people don't understand there's life insurance, there's health insurance, there's property
Right.
insurance, there's liability insurance.
mhm,
And insurance commissioners we've had in the past have come from other backgrounds other than property.
Right.
absolutely. So, I mean, you're 100% correct. In the history of Oklahoma having an insurance commissioner, we've had, I believe, 13 since the OID was founded and created. And the great many of those individuals, all great people, have come predominantly from the health insurance or the life insurance side of the industry. Um, my entire career has been spent in the property and casualty space. I have a very, very dusty life accident and health license. Got it at the early onset of my agency career, and haven't had really any opportunities to use it. It's probably a good thing. It would be tantamount to malpractice if I were to try to write a life insurance policy with my background and my training. But yeah, I mean, starting out in career as an insurance underwriter, in my experience, gave me a great insight into the breadth of the industry, what all can be done to write a property policy in the state of Oklahoma or in any other state for that matter. Have been fortunate enough to have experience with just about every type of commercial property policy that exists, and some now that don't exist. We don't hear about things like COP forms very much anymore, which used to be the coolest way to write property in Oklahoma. But And on the residential side, have worked with, clients, homeowners, people with secondary homes, trailer homes, mobiles and RVs and everything in between. And so I think I bring the greatest breadth of understanding of what's out there in the marketplace, what can be done to cover property, but also seeing how those insurance companies behave from an actuarial standpoint, from a claims management, claims handling standpoint. I'm the only independent agent running in this race. I don't represent just one carrier. Being an independent agent and broker means in my career, have worked with dozens, probably hundreds of different insurance companies that have been in and out of the state of Oklahoma. And, with that perspective, you really have a good understanding of who does things right and how to identify best practices with insurance companies. And you can also identify who's trying to get by, trying to get away with some pretty questionable business practices. And I don't think those companies should be allowed to operate that way. I think the insurance commissioner has a duty to step in on behalf of the citizenry of Oklahoma and do what has to be done to stop that bad acting.
So let's talk about that bad acting, right? We know there's a lot of things happening lately. There's a lot of things in the media. So what would you say the biggest issue that our Oklahoma policyholders are facing right now? And if elected, how do you plan to address that?
Well, so it's really kind of a two-pronged approach. Obviously, we're getting hit in the pocketbook with ever rising insurance premiums. Premiums have gone up steadily year over year for quite some time. And, at a certain point, a company will come to Oklahoma and the insurance department say, oh, we need another 15 or 25% rate increase for our homeowners book. Well, that's on top of 6 or 7 subsequent years of 10 to 15 to 25% rate increases. And that exponential growth is unsustainable. It's unaffordable. And, we're at a major tipping point, I think, in the marketplace for affordability of homes and home ownership in our state. Uh, the most vulnerable of our citizenry, your aging population or your would-be first-time home buyers, we're just putting ourselves in a position where it's just not going to be affordable property in Oklahoma and insurance. Beyond that, it's bad enough to pay a high premium for your insurance, but we have some weather, we have fires, we have water damage. You name your cause of loss for a property, and when that happens, that's a bad day to say the least. It's a traumatic day for many. And to then turn around and say, okay, I've been paying insurance premiums faithfully month in, month out, year in, year out for 25 years. The tornado hit, it's time to initiate a claim. And now all of a sudden, instead of having a neighborly friend in your insurance company, you have an adversary. And I mean, talk about adding insult to injury. um, and unfortunately, great many people in Oklahoma and really countrywide aren't going to be able to dissect their own insurance policy to the degree they need to advocate for themselves and fight back with an adjuster that may be denying a claim or with a valuation that doesn't seem right. And so the insurance department, in my view, exists for that party to come to the OID and have an advocate, and have their case be heard and get a fair shake of what they can expect. Now, I'm also an independent agent, so I believe they should go to their agent first.
Sure.
But, absent of that, in like a direct writer kind of scenario, you need to have that as an option, a check and balance in the system, because without that, your next avenue is often to go find an attorney and get into a litigation scenario that ultimately drives costs up for everybody in the system. Litigation can be very effective, but it's not cheap. And ultimately, insurance is risk pooling and risk sharing amongst the people in our state, and various policyholders here. And we're all going to bear that cost at some point down the line. So how we fix that, I'm free market conservative and believe that competition and more companies operating in our state and deploying that property insurance capacity will provide a more competitive landscape and bring costs down and bring pricing down. Um, there are many fantastic insurance companies that have never come into the state of Oklahoma, and it's a job of the insurance commissioner to attract, recruit, and retain quality insurance companies to come in, companies that have exemplary satisfaction from their policyholders and JD Power ratings, through the roof. There are a few of those out there that have never stepped foot in our state. And, I think a lot of that has to do with how we've messaged what it is to be in Oklahoma. And I think we've let other entities tell our story for us. Saw it as an underwriter working with a national carrier. Most of the leadership was East Coast people. They had no clue what Oklahoma is. They'd never been to Oklahoma. They think we ride horses to work in school. It's
Listen, I
just
grew up on the East Coast and I came out here for a visit when I was in high school. And when I went back, I was asked, is the mode of transportation horseback, and do we have electricity and plumbing in Oklahoma? They do. They absolutely do see Oklahoma that way.
absolutely. I mean, I guess thank God for the Oklahoma City Thunder for bringing some positive attention to our state, and
Right?
they see the pictures of downtown OKC, and they're like, oh, there's art, there's
Right.
architecture, there's
We don't live in
real.
huts and teepees and I mean, because that's the perception. That's it just yeah. Yeah,
But I mean, even in our rural areas of the state, um, the homes are well built. The
they
people
are.
care about their property. They care about their homes. They take care of their things. We're not just letting things go to rot and then expecting insurance to pick up the tab when something bad happens. These people take pride in their property, and I think we're a better risk than people give us credit for. Can we do better? Absolutely. Can we build with more resilient building materials? Absolutely. But there's all this talk and rhetoric in this particular election. I think shifting a lot of the responsibility onto the policyholders and onto the consumers, and it's not just one-sided. Absolutely, people need to manage risk in their personal lives, just like businesses do. Um, but you can't just put all the onus on the consumer.
Sure.
There has to be it. Otherwise, why are you buying insurance? If everything could be managed at the consumer level, there wouldn't be a need for insurance policies.
That's
But
very true.
ultimately, people are going to have to find a way to, finance the repair on their house or finance the repair on their commercial building if something hits it. And that's a key component of insurance as well.
Well, speaking of that, I'm sure you know that recently the feds have decided that ACV policies are going to be good enough for Freddie Mae or Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae mortgages. Essentially, if anybody who has had a mortgage in the past or has an active mortgage, the mortgage company requires RCV or recoverable cost value policies. Now they're
Yes.
saying that ACV is appropriate or will be accepted. Um, there's two parts to this question because before that, in Oklahoma, the insurance carriers are allowed to implement whatever they want and then ask for permission later. There's actually a term for that, but it's escaping
Use
me.
and file.
Use and file, that's right. They're allowed to use and file first instead of file and then use, which is, I think that's an Oklahoma Constitution thing. I don't know that it's something that an insurance commissioner can deal with, but is there anything that you know of that can be done about that process? And number two, how do you feel about this ACV issue with these mortgage companies? Now, how do you
Sure.
think it's going to affect our market?
I mean, so we'll start with use and file. I don't know for a fact that it's constitutional, but it is something that requires a legislative solution to change that system. And I believe there was some legislation through the current session of the Oklahoma legislature to potentially take us to a different type of system, a file and use system where the insurance company has to file it with the OID before they can start using it. Um, even more extreme than that is something called prior approval, which is similar to what I believe they have in California, where there's a heavier hand to the regulation of insurance property rates or insurance rates in general. Um, the legislation that I looked at that was, again, I need to see how it fared in the process this session, but it's fascinating because you want flexibility in the market when things are good. You want an insurance company that may come into our state new that files a rate for property coverage to be able to decrease it if they think that they're not competitive enough, and have that type of flexibility. That's beneficial to the consumer. Um,
How often
and
does
I
that
believe
happen?
in the homeowner space in Oklahoma, not in a long time, but
Right.
we have seen it happen many times with types of coverage that we had major reform on. Workers' comp is a fantastic example. We reformed our comp system in 2014, and year over year since then, we've seen significant decreases in that type of insurance, which used to be the gnarliest, largest expense item in a business's insurance portfolio. Now it's bottom two in terms of what they're paying in expenses for most industries. Um, but I don't know what I believe is the absolute best answer. What I do know is that if the system stays the way it is, use and file, that the insurance commissioner and the insurance department rate and file division has a majorly important role to play, and they have to be fast in how they handle that analysis of the actuarial data that comes in from the insurance companies, because they do provide the actuarial support for their rates. But it really puts a lot of onus on the OID to quickly and expeditiously and accurately digest that data, because it's a very short window to come back and say, actually, we don't agree with this. And, you know, the OID employs over 100 people right now. They don't have a shoestring staff, although I think there's a case to be made for some expansion, particularly in rate and file. Um, but I don't know. I mean, if we do change that to a file and use scenario, I think that would buy us some time and maybe a little bit of breathing room to more thoroughly look at the work that's being provided by insurance companies. But ultimately, we need transparency and accountability in that part of our industry. And we haven't seen any, very publicly available data about rates and how they're moving. It's kind of difficult to find, I think, for the average consumer. And I think the OID needs to be that go-to source and have an easily accessible dashboard type system for people to see what's going on in the marketplace. You can turn on CNBC and get stock ticker data anytime you want. It's on your iPhone. It's on any device you can name. I think we should be able to have the same type of accessibility.
Well, I think that will be important, because as a policyholder myself, right? Every year when I see my rates go up, but then my same insurance company has articles on their billions of dollars of profit, that's a hard one for me to swallow. When the CEO makes multiple millions a year, and then you tell me you can't pay my claim and my rates went up, right? Like that's I think that everybody across the country probably feels that, but more so here because we have some of the largest rate increases in the nation. That's not a secret. And so yeah, I think transparency would be huge, and I really am excited to hear that that's something that you're gonna work for it to have, because I'm pretty curious myself. And I feel like if the
Well,
insurance companies had to or knew that data was going to be shared, it might change things a little bit.
I would agree. And you bring up a great point, Steph. We hear about the unprofitability or the difficulties that insurance companies have in making a buck in Oklahoma. And then you read their national level reports and hear about record setting quarterly profit margins. And
And we're not
I
even
think
talking
we
about their advertising and the athletes they pay, right? Like we're not talking about any of that.
right. Yeah, they don't talk about the expenses for their commercial marketing efforts. It's difficult. I mean, I've heard for years, we talk about combined ratios, which is a simple measure of profitability for insurance companies. It's underwriting success quantified in a simple form. But it can be, like all statistics, you can manipulate data. You can conveniently not mention certain other sources of revenue. And insurance companies have to have investment income for the years that they're not going to be able to make money from the underwriting perspective.
Mhm.
You're going to have loss years, catastrophic loss years that just eat up all the underwriting. All the premiums go right back out in claims and then some. Um, but you have to have the full picture of it. If you just look at something like a simple combined ratio that only looks at one side of the house, I think we're missing the point there. And I think we've been fed some other statistics about the competitive nature of the marketplace in Oklahoma, which we have an uncompetitive marketplace. If the insurance commissioner uses a statistic that deems it uncompetitive, there's more action that they can take to regulate competition in our state. And I think, Greg, your point earlier, we've we've been very protective of our insurance companies because we're just so darn happy they're here, blessing us with their beautiful policies and underwriting capacity and all of this stuff. But we're just seems like there are some active protectionary things going on to keep them happy. And and I'm okay with them being happy and making a profit, but I need to know that they're taking care of Oklahoma.
I agree.
And,
We can probably stand our ground a little bit without upsetting anybody. You probably know that we're no stranger to criticizing the OID. We've had to enter a lawsuit with them before, in which we were actually calling them out for protecting insurance companies over their own consumers.
Mhm,
Um, and the article recently written about us by J.C. Holloman in the OklahomaWatch.org
mhm.
showcases that pretty well. The complaints that are filed on an annual basis they seem to go uninvestigated. Um, Meanwhile, the insurance companies are being protected, and we've seen this firsthand over the past 4 or 5 years, 6 years. Um, it's become frustrating.
Mhm.
Um, how do you see yourself as insurance commissioner addressing complaints, investigating complaints, fulfilling open records requests, that kind of thing?
Well, it's been a core component of the entire campaign. Transparency. And I'm not the only politician or person seeking office that's throwing that buzzword around. But what it means to me is that if we have a complaint on any insurance company for any reason, it's going to be thoroughly investigated, and that consumer should have every possibility of access to know how that complaint is going, where it is in the investigative process, and ultimately a timely resolution. Um, Now, timely is a nebulous word, and what one of us may consider to be a good turnaround time may be pathetically slow to the other. And I've had my disagreements with people at the OID who think, a longer process is necessary.
Yeah,
But ultimately, what I've heard throughout this entire campaign is that the complaint division, where they're receiving those complaints, is not where Oklahoma consumers are getting resolution. It's a black hole for one of two forms, and they're never heard from again.
yeah,
It's been frustrating personally throughout this campaign. We've made requests that the OID uh, hold and conduct a hearing to determine the competitive marketplace and whether or not we truly have a competitive market in Oklahoma for homeowners insurance. And we finally did get a response, and their answer was no. So
Imagine that.
we're in the process of taking it to the next step, and hopefully can't divulge too much of the game plan for that, but we're not letting this go. And we want to see that the OID is very thoughtful in this process. And I want them to be just as thoughtful with how they handle consumer complaints, because otherwise, why are you here?
So, according to the Oklahoma Insurance Code, the insurance companies have 60 days to complete their claims investigation, which can be
Mm-hmm.
up to about 120 days if they ask for more time in writing. If you were insurance commissioner, would you put out a memo or make a pledge to stick around that same kind of time frame for a complaint filed by a constituent, as far as an investigation
Absolutely.
goes? 60
Absolutely.
days
I
to
think,
120 days.
Well, I think right now the
I,
response requirement is 30 days.
Well,
well, and it's a moving target. You know, like we mentioned, certain legislative actions that have gone through this session alone. There have been a couple of bills that have made it through the House that address issues like this from a claims handling standpoint, a timeliness standpoint. I don't believe they address the complaint side of OID. May have overlooked that. It's only a 45-page document. At a certain point, your eyes cross. But honestly, if from my perspective, and whether I'm going to have the authority to make that call or not, it's absolutely my intention to deliver. 60 days is still a terrible time, and I think we have the ability, and we should be able to deliver better than that for the citizens vote. 30 days, if you really, if you suffered a catastrophic loss at your property, 30 days is a long time. Lots of additional damage occurs in 30 days in the springtime in Oklahoma. I've seen it firsthand. If there's a hole in your roof, time is not your ally.
well,
Right,
And
I
that
mean,
tarp
yeah,
only does so much for so long.
mold could happen
right,
within a week.
Oh yeah,
right.
absolutely. Yeah, especially you get into those hotter months too. It proliferates very rapidly. So, you talk about making a bad day worse. Uh, it's been my point this entire campaign is timeliness, timeliness, timeliness. Deny and delay tactics are not something I'm going to tolerate. And that applies to every facet of insurance. We're hearing about it from health insurance to obviously property and casualty, uh, auto physical damage claims. I mean, just I feel like there's an intention to drag things out to the point where the consumer, the policyholder, gives up.
That's
And
absolutely our experience also.
And we say that all the time.
Yeah.
well, I mean, talk about David versus Goliath. You've got a single family home and with a homeowner's policy and a small family living in there. Maybe it's single income, or maybe it's somebody on a fixed income. You think they've got a lot of financial war chest and wherewithal to just keep this thing ongoing or self fund repairs on a $20,000 roof?
Right.
Absolutely not. And
Exactly.
on the other side of that equation, you have a multi-billion-dollar insurance carrier. Who do you think is going to last longer in that waiting game?
Right.
That's that's been our experience also, and what we found is the insurance carriers have no fear. They do not fear any repercussions um, from the insurance commission, from the state, from anybody. The only thing that they might fear a little bit is a civil suit, but there again, that could take a year and a half to 2 years to settle out. And
Absolutely.
so they get to just run around unchecked, is what it seems.
Right. And I think there's been some good legislative attempts to try and give the insurance commissioner some more power from a fine levying perspective. $1,000 fine doesn't do a whole lot
No.
to $1 billion balance sheet. I think we've made some efforts to increase that to something like $10,000 fines, which still is probably not going to sting as badly as it looks on paper. But I think we're trying to make efforts legislatively, and I applaud the Oklahoma legislature for trying to move some of those things in the right direction. It seems to me that people at 23rd and Lincoln are hearing the pain and hearing the cries of constituents and acting accordingly. And I'm thrilled about that. It's
We are too, absolutely. Now you made a statement at an event we were in that I felt like it was important for the people of Oklahoma to know. And 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 if I don't state this correctly, please do correct me. Um, but you stated that your campaign has not and will not accept any contributions from insurance companies. Is that right? Tell
that
us
is correct.
why you I guess made that
Why I'm walking away from a large
right. Like
potential sum of
why
money.
did you to say, you know what, I don't want your money, and why do you think that's important?
I think our last
Sure.
insurance commissioner raised about $1 million from insurance companies.
I mean, that's a lot of money.
I didn't hit the summation feature of Excel when I was looking at that, but I won't confirm or deny knowledge of previous campaign contributions to other candidates or commissioners. But
Sure.
it's look, it's simple ethics in my world. Uh, if it's going to be my job to regulate the insurance industry and insurance companies in the state of Oklahoma, I can't have a financial interest in any one insurance company, and that it's my job to regulate. And so, I mean, what that means is that when we're successful and I'm elected to the insurance commissioner role in Oklahoma, I have to divest my own interest from the agency that I'm a part of now and be separated wholly from insurance companies and agencies. Um, I will say that one key differentiator there, being an independent agent, I've accepted money from insurance agents. I believe that they're voters. So I have no qualms about taking money from a voter in the state of Oklahoma. Um, but the insurance carriers themselves, there's just too much of a conflict of interest there and I've seen, it's no secret they've supported other candidates in the past. And I think that just breeds an ethical dilemma that I have no interest in fighting internally in my own mind. I don't want to have to second guess a decision I make as insurance commissioner about whether or not I'm biased towards a carrier or somebody based on their support of my campaign. So,
And I mean, I was I was glad to know that that was the case because again, you know, like you said, not only would you be questioning that decision, but then maybe if it was something that people didn't agree with, right, then they
mhm.
would say, well, did he do that because, you know, this company gave him campaign funds? And so I do commend that a lot. I respect that. I think that I think that a lot of people would feel the same way. Um, and to your point about accepting funds from agents, I don't know of an agent out there who, captive or not, right, only writing for one company or not, still doesn't have their clients' best interest in mind, right? You know,
Exactly.
and so I don't see that as being the same thing, especially independent ones, because like you are, even though you have all these different companies, you are still using those to find the best option for your client, right? So I feel like that's a different thing, but I really do commend you for that and making that decision. Um, so
I appreciate it. And I will say one other thing about that. Talking about agents that may only represent one insurance company, maybe beholden to a particular company. I've had a lot of conversations with that type of insurance agent throughout this campaign and in the past, even before this campaign was announced. Um, you want to talk about being in a really awkward position if you're an insurance agent that represents one insurance company and they're not treating your clients, your neighbors, your friends the way you would expect them to be treated, that you would expect yourself to be treated. Um, and the amount of time, effort, and just energy and stress that goes into that process. I feel probably the worst for those captive agents that are having to defend the company that they solely represent when they probably know that this isn't the right way to do things. And it's also probably not healthy and helpful for their livelihood and their bottom line, because they're business owners too, and having to being solely reliant on one supplier, so to speak, is really difficult when the product becomes something you wouldn't buy yourself.
We've heard stories from agents, especially captive ones, who are really frustrated, um, uh, especially from a certain big red insurance company that there's contention between the claims department and the sales department. And when an agent tries to call to get some help for one of their customers, they're met with the same sort of hostility that we're treated with sometimes,
Yeah.
even hung up on in some cases. And so there is an issue there. I don't know if it's anything that we could address or you could address, but there is some contention there.
Absolutely.
Well, absolutely. And look, I mean, it's got to be a difficult situation to be in to try and make a complaint against your own company.
Absolutely.
I don't see a lot of, I don't think there'd be anybody bold enough to make a claim against State Farm if they're a State Farm agent to the OID. Um, but perhaps I'm wrong. I mean, maybe there's some of those floating
Maybe they
around
are.
in the complaint division at OID. But it's bottom line is, I mean, look, we have a standard in Oklahoma. We expect, and it's the job of the OID to uphold that expectation to insurance companies that are writing admitted business owners. So this isn't a hard thing. This isn't a political thing. This is just do
The
right
right
by the
thing.
people who have
Yeah.
paid the premiums and done right by you. If they didn't pay their premiums, deny away. I mean, I get it. But if someone has been very faithful and held up their end of the bargain, insurance is a promise to pay. It is built on trust at its core. And to violate that trust is not something I'm going to tolerate.
So before we let you go, because we appreciate your time and we know you're even out of town and traveling, um, tell us simply, like, why should Oklahomans vote for you?
Absolutely. Well, look, this is an industry that I've spent my entire career dedicated to. Dedicated the entirety of my career to learning every single thing a person can possibly learn about the insurance industry. I've seen it from the inside on the carrier side, seen it from the brokerage side. I care about Oklahomans, and it would have been very simple for me to stay on the sidelines like I have most of my career. But ultimately, God's called me to be an advocate for the consumer, to step up and stand in the gap for Oklahomans and fight for them. And that's what I'm committed to doing for 4 to 8 years, God will. Um, we're going to bring transparency, accountability, and trust back to the Oklahoma insurance. That's what Oklahomans should expect, and it's what they deserve.
I mean, goodness, I mean,
And don't you have some credentials from the institutes?
Oh goodness, yeah, I'm an insurance nerd. I've got all the alphabet soup following my name on the business card. Chartered property and casualty underwriter, certified insurance counselor, certified risk manager, certified environmental specialist. Even learned about the surety bonding world with the associate in fidelity and surety bonding designation. Apparently, I test well. So
And you have the
it's
CPCU?
yes, the charter.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for people that don't understand what that is, it's essentially a master's degree or a doctorate in insurance and risk management. I mean,
That's that was how it was always described to me as from my days as a baby underwriter to
right.
being mentored by some fellow CPCUs, some who have departed for heaven. But ultimately, the way what they instilled in me was never stop learning. This industry is ever changing. It is ever developing. The second you think you know it all, you're absolutely dead wrong in the worst possible way. So it's just something that I've taken to heart, and it's just been a core of how I've approached this industry. And to say that could be the most credentialed person from that perspective in this race. I'm trying to be humble about it, but I have to believe that I am the only person in this race that has that kind of sickness to take that many tests for insurance
I'm
and risk
guilty.
management.
I'm guilty.
Well, yeah, and people who aren't in the insurance industry, it's not going to be that impressive, but I can tell you right now that that's pretty dang impressive.
Absolutely.
And it does set you way above anybody else as far as the knowledge in dealing with these things, these contracts, these terms, these,
Yeah.
things that are made to confuse the average person. They're done on purpose to confuse people and keep them ignorant, to keep them paying more money. And being able to translate that language as an insurance commissioner, I think is extremely important.
Absolutely.
Well, and it just goes back to the universal truth that insurance is a contract. It's a contract that the policyholder has no say in other
Right.
than accept or don't. And it's written by some very intelligent people, most of which aren't in the state of Oklahoma, and it's done for the benefit of the insurance company and their long-term profitability. So, yeah, to your point, I mean, the forms are vague, they're confusing. There's many
Oh, we've lost
kind of
you.
part of the industry. Um, it's it does require a different degree of attention to dissect.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So,
Let us know, how
well,
can people get a hold of you?
yeah, where do you, that's where we're
Absolutely.
going. Website,
Yeah.
donations,
Sure.
yard signs. Where can people do all of those things?
Any and all of those things can be done on our website, bobsullivan.com. Um, I'm always happy to give out my cell phone number. It's on all of my campaign cards, 918-520-6484. Call, text, send your Hogwarts owl, however you need to get a hold of me.
I love that.
I'm happy to talk with anybody that's interested in insurance in the state of Oklahoma.
Wonderful.
All right.
Okay. Well, again, thank you for making the time. Like we said, we know you're a busy man, but we believe in what you're trying to do, and we thought that by making a video, we would share that with everybody that we know, and hopefully they continue to share it here in Oklahoma, so that we can get you in there, get you voted in November.
Thank you all so very much. God bless you.
Have a great day.
Thanks.